Hello, welcome back. It's Angie, and I'm here again with another layout or sketch from the Creative Memories blog. In this case, I will again link the link below to go there if you are one that's like me and likes to read the instructions sometimes. This one they use the Welcome Home collection. It is also page 35 of the 101 Sketches and Ideas book. So we will get started. I will show you what I am working with for this week. I am going to do a little bit of adapting and also a little bit of more embellishing than what they did on the page. So I will switch you over to my desktop and bear with it for a second while it loads. I'm not quite sure why it takes a long time to switch over, but I think it might have to do with my computer. It's pretty old. So again, we're going to be working with this layout here, and I'm going to do some things a little bit different than what they have in the sketch and the dimensions, but for the most part, stay with the same idea and aesthetic. I am working with Easter photos of the kids with their Easter baskets from just this last weekend, and I have a little bit of an Easter collection left over from Easter Blessings. I don't have a whole lot of the paper, so I am switching from the paper, but I'm going to use some of the stickers that came with this pack. But what collection I am using is, excuse me, the Painted Garden, and then the Tone on Tone for it, along with the mats and embellishments and stickers. So I have this kind of planned out in my mind, but as we all know, sometimes things that we plan out in our minds don't always um, come out that way when we start. Now, all of my photos were more vertical photos, and the layout calls for one kind of vertical. They trimmed it down to an oval, but one vertical and one square and one horizontal. I am going to, for the most part, do a little bit of a vertical and then two squares. So again, just kind of adapt the layouts and sketches for whatever works for your photos. And when I printed these, I did print two of them down a little bit shorter, and this one I'm going to trim some off the top. So there we go. I have some mats to make this go fairly quickly. I picked some of those out already. I have an idea for some embellishments, and I do have some idea for some borders. So kind of the biggest thing with this layout was they have a few different border elements, both at the bottom and then kind of in the middle, covering up the seam between the two pages or papers. Um, so we're gonna definitely expand on that a little bit more too. So I picked out two papers, one for my top section and one for my bottom main section. And these are the two that I picked out, again, from the Painted Garden paper pack. And I am going to use this darker green at the bottom portion of the page. One thing in terms of colors, I usually tend to like the darker colors to the bottom. Um, Darker colors usually have more of a heavy feel to them. So if you put them towards the bottom of the page, it almost feels a little bit right. I don't know how to explain that. And again, in their example, they kind of did the same thing. Not that this is such a bright and light paper, but it is a little bit lighter than this dark brown. So they kept that dark brown to the bottom and did kind of the more lighter paper to the top. And I'm going to do the same thing. And so this is going to be, for the most part, my base page, and it is going to be 8 inches. What you want your chunk. I'm going to cut it to 11, and then I'm going to put this piece on top. So I'm going to have that 1 inch to adhere. So let's go ahead and start some cutting with the paper trimmer. So again, I'm going to cut this one down to 9 inches, and the back isn't very directional, but I think I'm going to, well, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to have a small strip. But I'm just going to try and keep more of the dandelions, so maybe I'll cut off that. Maybe this section, like that. Okay, so we're going to cut it down to 9. Again, it's just 3 inches in case I wanted to use this for back for any sort of tonal. anything, then I've got some dandelions, or again, I could use this for a future project. And then for this paper, I want my lines to be going vertical. So I'm going to turn this and cut. And I'm going to cut it to 4 inches. And then we're going to adhere these two pieces together. So I'm going to put this paper down. And again, there's not really a direction to this, I don't think. No, my flowers are going sideways, up and down, so it does not matter. So I'm going to put this on my on my mat and line it up, and put some adhesive. And for the most part, I gave myself a generous 1 inch to put this piece down on top. And then I'm just going to make sure to line up the sides and line it up in the corner. And there we go. So we've conserved a little bit of paper by doing this. We've got 8 inches here and a few inches here to put those together for a future layout. So now I can mat my photos, but I am actually going to build a little bit of a border down here. So I could use a border strip, but I thought it would be cute to build a kind of a layered border with the grass BMC and some wildflowers. So I pulled out a few different papers that coordinate. Again, this is from the Tone on Tone pack. So I think I'm going to, again, this is in my mind. What I think I'm going to do is cut a strip of the dark green grass and put it behind, and then do this pinky purpley in the flowers, and then do a strip of this light green in the grass. So it's kind of multi-dimensional with the flowers kind of in between the two different level layers of grass. So let's start with the grass and use our border maker cartridge. Let's set this aside for a second and roll that in. And then after I punch, I'm going to keep all of my edge attached to my paper because I'm going to layer them a little bit, and I'm not quite sure what the dimension I'm going to cut it to will be. And it looks like, I don't know, I thought maybe one side was a little bit darker. This had a lot of the light edge to it, and I want to get a little bit more of that dimension and color. All right, so there's our 2 layers of grass, and again, I'm going to wait to trim them. So we will set those to the side. Let's get rid of some of this garbage. And if you had like a small section, like that still kind of looks like grass, even though it's more wavy than pointy. Now let's do our flowers. So if you are using a border punch, where you're going to want to start your paper is right here on either side. I tend to load the paper with my right hand from the right side. So I'm going to start my paper with this left notch or mark of black. And you're just going to line up your paper with that mark there. And make sure the paper is pushed back to this back ledge and punch. And then we're going to slide it over until our image lines up here on the base plate. And again, making sure that it's lined up on the back there still. And just continue to do that. So again, I tend to load from right to left so that my right hand is kind of guiding the paper and holding it here. I don't know if it is a righty lefty thing, if lefties tend to go the other way or not. And there's one teeny tiny little bit right there. There we go. All right. So now let's layer this and see what it looks like. So I was going to use my darker green a little bit behind, and I don't want it to like stand up necessarily taller than my flowers. I just kind of want it to be maybe with the flowers behind there. And then I was going to use the lighter one, again, just kind of blending in. You can see in the Flowers Punch there is some grass here. I was just going to kind of blend some of that in like that. So let's, and I'm just going to adhere, even though this shows a little bit of paper between or behind the sticker that they put on, I'm just going to put it right to the bottom. So I'm going to adhere all of this together and then just cut all of them at one time. So let's start by putting a little bit of repositional tape along the bottom, and I should use my mat. Use my silicone mat so that if any of the adhesive is going between those grass a little bit, that they won't stick to my paper or mat behind it. All right, now let's put this down, and we're gonna kind of line it up, my mat here, just to make sure that everything's straight, just so my edges are straight. And I know that my flowers aren't going crooked. So again, I don't really want my grass to be taller than my flowers, but I do want you to be able to see it. And again, they're wildflowers. So if they're growing in the wild, I'm going to assume that the grass is kind of growing wild too, right? All right, so let's put a little bit of adhesive on the back of these grasses. And I'm just trying to line up the edges. Again, I'm not measuring the height for this necessarily. I'm just trying to make sure the edges line up. I think that's pretty good. And I'm still going to wait to trim this. Let's start assembling some of the layout a little bit. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do the border first, is to kind of see where everything's going to go. So this is going to go down here, and just kind of eyeballing it to have a little bit of the green. It looks like it's at about 1.5. Maybe those little petals are a little bit higher than 1.5. So I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm going to start trimming down my mats and photos for a second. And I have 3 different mats that are pretty light and tonal. This one's going to go here. I think I plan on that one there and this one here. So this is kind of where we're going. My photos are 4 inches wide. This one I thought trimming down to about 5 inches. That's good. And so then this mat is 4.5, I believe. This is, yep, one of the 4.5 by 6.5. So I'm going to trim this down to 5.5 so that I'm consistent with my dimension all the way around. My photo's 4 inches and this is 4.5. If I trimmed it down to 5, I want this to be 5.5. And then we've got a consistent mat all the way around. We're going to do the same thing with this guy. Again, this one I printed 4 by 4. So I'm going to trim it down to the 4 inches. Same thing here. This one is a 4.5. So I'm going to trim it down to 4.5 by 4.5. And this photo will go on there. Now, this last one is a little bit different. I have this mat, and this is a 4 by 6 mat, and it's got a little title there. We're going to turn it, and I'm just going to use, I'm going to put a different little title, like tab on it for journaling. But my dimension of this portion that I'm going to use to mat my photo is a little bit screwy. It's 4 by about 4 3/8. So I want to trim this down. This is already 4 inches wide. So there's my math. So if I have this flower portion is 4 3/8, I want to trim my photo down to be the same, to be consistent. So I have 3/8 of an inch around. So that means I need to trim 3/8 of an inch off of it. So it's a 4x4 image. So I need to trim off 3/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to kind of trim down from both sides. Because it's okay if I trimmed off a little bit of the couch and a little bit of his toes. So the mat size around the photos is not the same as these two, but it is now consistent around there. So now I've just kind of taken up that space and made my photo adapt to it. And tape runner got moved all the way to the side. Let's adhere these to the mats. And I liked how this corally mat kind of coordinated with the orangey colors in his record there. This little gift from the Easter Bunny. Okay, so let's start to play around with placement. So for the most part with the layout, there is a image up here, and there is more like overlapping of photos. I think I'm just going to kind of line them up. Now I do have my border, again, that was about 1.5 inches tall, so I don't really want to cover him up per se, so we might shimmy those up a little bit more, and then my border will just kind of cover that photo. They have a like title box. Again, it looks like they trimmed a mat card from that. I don't really have any titles, and again, I was using a lot of the spring papers, but it's an Easter layout. So I thought of putting this here, and maybe there weren't a lot of titles in this Easter stickers, but I might use this Rejoice in the middle there. That's kind of cute. So we're going to set that. I'm going to put it on my silicone mat here because it'll come right up. And I was going to use this for my title. I'm going to trim that down. I don't really want both sides to be like a tab. So I'm just going to take that end off. And I did grab some ribbon out of my stash that I thought coordinated really well to put there. So that'll kind of get tucked there. And then my border. So let's take a look at that. And this is going to go, again, across the bottom. I think we're going to trim it to 1.5. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe these flowers will be at 1.5. So let's look at that. And I'm going to turn it the other way. So more of my paper is against the edge. So 1.5 is over here on this side. And again, I'm kind of guesstimating in the middle there. And I'm going to cut it. Make sure to do 2 swipes because I had 3 pieces of paper there. I think it did cut through all on the first try, but just in case. All right, so then that's going to go along the bottom. So that's cute. Okay. I could move this down a little bit. So now, what I haven't decided is they have border elements, again, kind of in the middle here along the seam of where the 2 pieces of paper come together. Now I have 2 options that I was thinking. One of them is from the Painted Garden collection, this leaf. That's cute, it coordinates. But in the Easter little collection, there were some eggs, but I think I'm going to save that for when they were actually doing an Easter egg hunt. But there were these little bunnies. So I thought that would be cute. Now I am just worried that there's not going to be a lot of a lot of differentiating between this light and the bunnies, but we are going to try it. Because again, these are pictures of their Easter basket, right? The Easter bunny was supposed to bring them. I'm just using my multi-purpose tool to kind of knock out that little bit that's in between the Easter bunny ears. Slowly just kind of pulling that up, make sure not to rip any ears. And I don't know about you guys, but this is for the most part how I put together my layouts. I like to kind of like map everything out and do what some people call like a dry fit and map everything out before I start really like adhering anything down. Because if I need to trim something, then I can. Okay, so we've got these little bunnies and oh, I missed one of the things in between. Got all the rest of them. And I think that's going to be fine. On camera, you probably can't see too much of like the differentiating between the background and the bunnies, but it does look fine in person. So I'm gonna make sure my paper is lined up straight. So then when I start adhering bunnies down, they are straight. And for the most part, I just don't want to see any of that green. And it is just a little bit shorter. Oh no, his ear covered takes up some of it. That's what it was. I don't want to end up chopping off his ear. Okay, that's about as even as I think I'm gonna get. So now let's put down our board. Oh, actually, I'm gonna put down my pictures because it's gonna go layered. So let's put my photos down. I think that's about the distance. Slide them over just a smidge. Make sure that's good. Yep. Okay, so let's adhere this one down because I know that's where I want that one with the bottom border. And I'm just trying to line it up with the edges, make sure he's all straight. Oh, got a little crazy there. Just fold that over and tuck it on. And I'm just kind of making sure that this distance is about the same with this photo as well. And we'll put this on lightly. I'm going to tuck some ribbon in there. So I didn't adhere all of that top down. And I'm going to grab my silicone mat so I can use some repo on the back of all these little flowers. So they get stuck down. This one was kind of bending up. So make sure to get that guy. All right. Let's put this border on the edge. And again, I'm all right. So there's our border with the flowers and the grass. And again, not necessarily Easter per se, but it is springtime. So we're gonna go with it. And I'm thinking that now I wonder if there's any other like Eastery stickers that we could use. There's Easter basket. We put that there. And I kind of thought this basket full of love, but not sure where I would put it. I mean, it is Easter, but I think that might be it. Again, I don't need a whole lot of Most of the embellishments from the Painted Garden collection were like bugs and berries, so that one doesn't really go. I was looking for the other Easter sheet. Oh, the other Easter sheet was just borders. Okay. So I think that's really it. So let's go ahead and put this little circle up here. We're going to put our rejoice, Easter basket. We're going to journal a little bit on here, but I did grab a little bit of ribbon and I'm just going to trim some off. And I'm going to tuck it through here. And then looping it. And we're going to trim the ends. Okay. And I'm just going to use some dabs of repo on the backs of them so that they just kind of stay down. So that the ends of them just kind of stick. So there's a little bit of ribbon for the tag there. And this was just some that I had in my stash. So there we go. There is my completed version of the layout. So definitely, obviously, did some adapting. I obviously changed my picture kind of dimensions. Again, I didn't have another horizontal photo, so I did 2 squares instead of this horizontal one here. Didn't trim this one down to an oval, but that is it. So switch you back. All right. So there you go. There is my take on this layout and sketch. And again, that's kind of the message, is to just kind of take sketches and layouts and make them work and adapt them for whatever photos that you're working on, whatever materials you're working with. Again, I probably could have put a border strip at the bottom, but just thought that kind of taking advantage of my different border maker cartridges and border punches added a little bit of spring fun to this Easter layout. So I would love to see what you come up with. Again, I will link the original blog post instructions in this video. But yeah, have a good weekend.